Welcome back, everybody, to your podcast, our podcast, the Popular Side Podcast. And as always, he's Yinka Yusuf.
Hello, people.
And I'm Akin Adike. Yinka, today is a Monday. We're recording on a Monday for several reasons, which we'll get into. The 27th of January,
Yes,
last
boss.
Monday of January. A lot has happened in this past weekend and past week in sports. One of the reasons we didn't record yesterday was I was watching my Eagles drop 55 points on the so-called Commanders. They were not commanding anything yesterday, I'll tell you that.
They were not commanding it. They were not commanding anything. They were not commanding anything at all.
Oh my god! I call them the Commandos, which for reasons I'm not even gonna get into.
Yeah.
So
they were the funny part. There was Jayden Daniel had a touchdown. I think it was, and he was dancing. I'm like, guy, you're like 13 down, and I'm like, what are you dancing for? You're like 13 or 14 down. What's the excitement?
So Yinka, I love the kid. Like
I
might be crazy. I might be crazy, and I think some of my Commanders friends think I was just blowing smoke. Mm-hmm. I already consider him he's already my favorite quarterback to watch in the NFL. That's how much I like this kid.
Lamar himself,
yeah, but I feel like he's more purposeful than Lamar, and I know that's blasphemy, and I don't, but it just throws just such a beautiful ball. No, it throws. I mean, it's just cerebral, and I'm thinking of he doesn't have the right environment yet, doesn't have the right, but I mean, and then you look at Terry, what is turned Terry into? Terry was an object of frustration to the local Commanders fans. Zach Ertz was done 5 years ago. Mm-hmm. Now it's catching 11 balls, in the conference championship. That's because of this kid, know. Yeah. But this is the first time that he hasn't been above reproach. You did not need that dance, son.
I don't do that.
He didn't need that dance. But
my son was rooting for him because he wanted him to be the first rookie quarterback to get to the Super Bowl. So he was like, what Commanders, and I'm like, nah. Jalen Hurts and Saquon, they're just it's too much. It's too much, especially Saquon.
Yeah, Saquon was ridiculous. So for me, Sirianni, our coach, and Jalen Hurts, our quarterback, are not above reproach. Okay.
Yes.
It's so funny because when I was saying some things about Jalen yesterday, my wife was like, I thought you liked him. I'm like, I love him. Like, if as an ambassador, even as a player, if he was making $15 million, it would be the best player ever. But $50 million is not in the class. Exactly. Yeah. Is not in the class of those other elite players.
Of the 50 million people.
It's not. It's the same way I feel about Justin Herbert and those other guys who are not really doing it. And I think Sirianni is a madman, but I could not have done this show yesterday in car because my heart was all the way up here. And I'm like, I didn't come into this season predicting we would go to the Super Bowl. I did not. I would have to be lying to you if I start saying that now. And even on the eve of the playoffs starting, I had the Detroit Lions versus the Baltimore Ravens. Yeah, that's who I had. I had the Lions coming out of the NFC and the Ravens coming out of the AFC.
Yeah, and I had that too. Lions, Baltimore, and I thought the Ravens were going to go to the Super Bowl. Yeah.
Well, I thought the
Lions.
I thought the Lions would win the Super Bowl. Will win the Super Bowl. Yeah. But anyway,
so any plans? Are you going to New Orleans?
Of course not. Yinka, a month ago, the cheapest tickets were $5,000. Am I crazy? No, I would watch it on my 84-inch TV. Yinka, like, stop it. Like, I'm crazy, but I'm not that crazy. And I love New Orleans. I've been to New Orleans. It's always a great time. The food is ridiculous. Everything is ridiculous. But no, I would not be spending. I don't have $5,000. You know,
it will not be $5,000 anymore, sir. So
it will be like $25,000. You know,
$25,000. You know, not
I don't have that
accommodation and
right
flights and the
transport.
rest of it.
Nah, I don't have that big auditor money, Inka. No. I'm just over here, trying to make ends meet. You know.
Anyway,
all right, let's get to it.
Let's get to it.
All right, so we're gonna go straight to our worthy mentions. We have 4 big topics to get to. First one is our guy Nuri Sahin, the coach, or should I say former coach, of Borussia Dortmund. What happens, man? This was, we talked about this for 3 weeks. It was the perfect match. This guy was a great player. It wasn't a great player at Man U, but that's Man U. Man U has long had problems. Was it Man U or Liverpool? Where did he go? Nuri Sahin, when he came to the EPL.
It was Liverpool.
It was Liverpool. Okay, sorry. Yeah. It was the other guy that went to the Korean guy that went to that went to Man U. But
Shinji Kagawa.
Yes, Shinji Kagawa. So I apologize, Nuri Sahin. You are one of my favorites. But I wanted this appointment to happen so badly. I want to see ex-players coaching, especially in a place like Germany, you know, where this guy is of Turkish descent, you know, what all the social stuff around that. Mesut Ozil has talked about it in the past, Muslims in Germany, Turkish people in Germany, all the discrimination and all that. So, Yinka, what happens? And do you think, and this is Dortmund that are never really about winning. What happened? Why would they sack this guy?
It just didn't work. It just didn't work. You can't be averaging a point per game at a title contending, although they don't care if they win, but they expect you to be title contenders either way, right? He won just 12 out of his 27 games in charge, Aki. That's not good enough. Right now, Dortmund are sat where on the table. They're way below on the table, Aki. Right? Dortmund they are 11th on the table. They have 26 points. They are, if my math is correct, they're 22 points behind Bayern Munich.
Ouch.
Right? So, trust me, it had to happen. I like him also. He was a fantastic player, confident, player. Good left foot and everything. But man, the writings on the wall. Not every player translates into a good coach. And you look at Dortmund, look at the room they give you, look at how lax they are in terms of pressure for you to win stuff. You will think that's an environment for someone that is, for someone to foster, someone that is not an experienced coach, someone that is, going through the ropes, a young coach. It's a perfect environment for that. But unfortunately, not 12 out of 27 games. Nah, it's not going to work, right? And I believe that what probably then happened is maybe he's lost the dressing room, and the management is just like, you know what, at this point, I guess you gotta go, So I feel bad for him. The last game they had was a 2-2 draw at home to Werder Bremen, although they got a red card along the line. But overall, it's not just good enough. 12 out of 27 is not good enough. It's not good enough.
So, do we think he's going to coach again, or is it one and done?
Of course, he will coach again. The Turkish league is quite robust, right? And they have so many Ankara Guku, Trabzonspor.
Why are you like this?
if Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is coaching one of the top 3 teams in the Turkish league, of course Nuri Sahin will get a job. Of course he will.
Okay. I hope so. I don't know. I just, again, I want good people to do well. He's one of the good ones. He's a gentleman. He's a good guy.
Yeah, he'll get a job, actually. Don't worry. He'll get a job.
Yeah. I really wanted this to work. Okay.
Yes.
Yinka, we had our first Grand Slam of tennis of the year. For me, the Australian Open is criminally early in the year. It's really hard to pay attention. If I'm being honest, I only watched one match in full, and that was the Sabalenka quarterfinals against the woman whose name I cannot pronounce, something Kushnet, something over, quarterfinals. Pavlyuchenkova. There you go. Not Kushnesova. That's another one. So I know it was some kind of Nova. And I know there's a guy with the male version of that name. So I watched that, and it made me think about the impact of the mental side of the game on these athletes. Sabalenka had, I think, the worst day I've ever seen her have. You know what I mean? She had no business winning that match, but there was a moment in the game where the other women's belief just eroded after like a complete unforced error. And Sabalenka was like, oh, I don't have to be good to beat this woman. She doesn't believe she can beat me. And that was it. It was still tight, but that was the end of it. That was the end of it. So what's your take on Sabalenka, who ended up losing in the final to Madison Keys? Congrats to Madison Keys. I believe she's 27 now. Her first Grand Slam win.
I think she's 29. Isn't she?
Oh, whoa. Let's check.
I might be wrong. I think you're right, actually. I think she's 27.
29. No, you're right. She's 29, Yinka. She's 29. Oh, my God. She's not just that. She's about to be 30 next month.
Exactly.
No, you're absolutely right. Oh, my. I thought she was 27. Wow. So, double congrats to her. I didn't even know she was that old. Reminds me of when Sloane won her, her one and only. Sloane was younger, obviously.
Was way younger.
But Madison has been in and around it. Finally had a breakthrough. Congratulations to her. On the men's side, Sinner won his third straight hard court Grand Slam. At this point, I don't even know what to say about him. The guy is phenomenal. And so, what are your thoughts in general? My girl Coco did not make it past the quarters, unfortunately.
I told you.
Don't do that.
I told you.
Don't do that. Don't do that.
So let's start with
Don't
this.
do that.
Madison Keys, double thumbs up.
Yeah, amazing.
If you know her, the injury record she's had when she was younger, when she had, was it Davenport that was our coach? The injury record, so bad, right? When she gets into form, just one minor nagging ankle injury knocks her out. So I'm so happy for her. I understand she recently got married. I think her husband is our coach also. I'm not sure if this is the case. If I'm wrong, apologies. But you could see she was very emotional. She was hugging the husband after she won. Very happy for her. She's always been a good tennis player. It's the injuries that knock her off when she's off form, and it takes her a long time to get back into form. Now, nobody can tell her that she didn't deserve this Australian Open because she knocked out the number 10, number 6, number 2, and number 1.
That's crazy.
She knocked out top four out of the top 10 to win this. She knocked out Iga Swiatek in the semis. Yeah. It was at that point that I said, you know what? An upset is brewing. An upset might be brewing here because I didn't see that coming. I did not see. When she beat Rybakina, I'm like, Rybakina is not strong on
Swiatek is the real deal, obviously. Yeah,
exactly. Swiatek is the real deal. I was like, but when she beat Danielle Collins, she beat Rybakina, she beat Swiatek, and she then in the final she coasted through the first set. Then Sabalenka came back roaring in the second set, and the third set was just a delight to watch. I always love when the ladies' game go 3 sets. It's more fun. I hate all those, 2 sets. I hate it. I don't like it.
Oh, you didn't. That means you didn't like half of Serena's career. It was like 40 minutes, 6-1, 6 love.
Then I was like, when Tyson is the old days. 30 seconds.
Serena was Tyson.
No. Let's enjoy the game to some extent. So I'm very, very happy for her.
Yeah, me too.
Quite disappointed in your girl, Coco.
Coco, you leave my girl alone.
Coco lost to Badosa. That's not who she should be losing to.
It happens.
Yeah? No. If she lost to Sabalenka, Swiatek, I would say fine. You can. It's okay for you to lose to these guys, but this is not the first time. Navarro, remember, twice.
I know.
Navarro twice.
Didn't Navarro win her quarterfinals at the Australian?
Last year, I think so.
No, this year. Didn't she?
No. This year it was Badosa that beat her this year.
No. I'm saying didn't she? Okay, keep going. She made it to the quarterfinals. That's what I meant. So I'm saying Navarro is not a nobody.
Yeah. Okay, I get your point. Sorry, Navarro made it to the quarterfinal, and Swiatek beat Navarro. Yeah,
in the quarters. Yeah, she's not a nobody. Is all I'm saying.
She's not a nobody.
I'm just saying.
I hear you.
Okay,
but at the same time, Badosa is not a nobody. Badosa is the 11th seed. Navarro was the 8th seed. But you can't. Come on now. You can't be losing to Badosa. Straight sets. Akin, come on now. Come on. Anyway,
can I offer something in mitigation? Okay.
No problem. Go ahead.
The Australian Open is where funky results happen all the time. No, but Yinka, is true. You know, it's too early in the year. It's hotter than hell in Australia.
Yeah.
Okay. And people, you know, you're just getting into your groove. You know, not everybody's insane. Like like Joker, who comes in on Gen 1 and is ready to go and wins 10 Australians in a row. That is the exception. That's not the rule. You know, or Federer before him that won 5 or 6 or 7 Australians.
Yeah.
You notice there hasn't been like a dominant woman in the Australian for a long time.
Yeah. And frankly, I would have. Well, I'm not in charge, but I would have switched the calendar a bit. Instead of considering Australia as the first tournament, why don't we think it as the last? After the Australia, let everybody go and rest.
Oh.
You know why I said so? Because right now you're messing people's rhythm off. Right? So you do the Australian, then you do the clay court tournaments, then you do grass, then you go back to hard court.
I know what you're saying, because
hard court, what do you call it? Flushing Meadows, US Open, do the Australian Open, right? And let that be the end of the season. So the clay court is the beginning of the tennis year instead of Australian Open.
When is the French, Inka? What month is the French?
The French is in summer. It's around.
That's what I'm saying. It's like in May.
Yeah, it's in May.
Wimbledon is like in June.
Wimbledon is almost immediately.
That actually makes sense. There's no Grand Slam between January and May.
It's just a lot of WTA, whatever. So let them go on break now. After the US Open, let the breaks happen. Then let the season recommence with all the clay courts, the Italian, the Spanish, the whatever, But quickly before we move on, Akin, on the men's side, Djokovic was on track to win this thing again.
He was.
That would have
been crazy.
If not for the injury, right? He beat Alcaraz, which was surprising to me, right? And Alcaraz won the first set, and Djokovic reeled out 3 sets. 6-4, 6-3, 6-4.
Yeah.
No tiebreaker. But he then got injured against Zverev, which I believe he had played Sinner in the final, he would have beat Sinner. I'm sorry. He would have beat Sinner. Wow. These people were struggling to... Come on.
Anyway. I'm going to be respectful. I am not a fan of your boy Joker, but I will always respect him, except his stance on COVID. Too many people died during COVID. This is not a time to mess around. But when it comes to getting the most out of your body, that is humanly possible in the cleanest way possible. Eating clean, living clean, just being like amazing. Just no one comes close. And to be honest, he's been lucky. He's been very lucky with injuries. You can't compare his injury record with Nadal's. But you know what happens? You always talk about father time.
Yeah.
That's when our guy, Rashidi Yekini, got his first major injury post 30 years old.
Yeah.
Right? So,
and he was never the same.
It was never the same. Iakini was very lucky his whole career, you know.
Yeah.
So same thing with Lampard. Lampard was always very lucky with injuries, and then boom, post 30 years old, you get a big one, and then you're never the same. So Djokovic, I mean, he probably got 5 more years out of his career based on just his self-discipline. That's how amazing it is. So he is.
Yeah.
So I'm not a fan, but I, respect where he's due. I don't love watching him, but I'm a student of the game.
The result done.
Yeah, he gets the result out. He's an exemplary athlete, so you got to give that to him.
Anyway, Akin.
Okay.
Let's move on. That's the Australia Open.
All right. So, Yinka, there was a massive, gigantic WNBA trade. Yinka, we've gone like 20 episodes without talking WNBA.
Yep.
And then they decide to give us this gift. And we're not even in season. The WNBA is not in season.
Yeah.
All right. So first, let me pull this up so we can just go through who gets what. Okay. So this is a blockbuster trade. Mm-hmm. It's 3 teams, right? So it's the Las Vegas Aces who lost to the New York Liberty in the finals last year, or this year, as you know. Mm-hmm. It's the Seattle Storm. And it's the Los Angeles Sparks. Why do we care about this? You're a Los Angeles fan, right? We both love the Aces. And I used to live in Seattle.
We have vested interest in the number 2 pick.
And we have vested interest in the number 2 pick. Or, I don't wish any misfortune on anybody. Maybe even number 1. Number 1. The major thing happening here is Kelsey Plum from the Aces is moving. So Kelsey Plum is going to your Los Angeles Sparks. So they get their point guard, I guess, of the future at 30 years old. We'll talk about that. Seattle Storm is sending Jewell Loyd, who is 31, to the Aces to replace Kelsey Plum. I don't understand that. Maybe you can explain the nuances of that to me.
Yeah, I will. Go ahead.
And then the Seattle Storm get the number 2 overall pick.
Yes.
Right? That's the main outline of it.
Yeah.
There's other things that there are other players.
So
Lee Yuru.
This accent, Yuru. Yeah.
Yeah, she's going, and then there's a few late round picks. There's a number 9 from Los Angeles. Yeah. So, Yinka, break this down for me. Why does this make sense, or why does it not make sense?
Okay, so let's start with each team. Yeah. For the Aces, let's start with Aces. For the Aces, Kelsey Plum, as always, is not a starter. Yeah. If I remember vividly, she's chopping and changing. This season start in some games she come off the bench as the 6th woman, as it is. And Kelsey Plum, if you know the history of Kelsey Plum, she was Caitlin Clark before Caitlin Clark, if you get what I mean. In terms of profile in college and the rest of it, she had the scoring record in college until Caitlin Clark broke it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So to some extent, she's not had the platform or the platform to be the star player while she was at Aces. Aces is stacked. It is Aja Wilson. It is point guard. What's her name again?
Chelsea Gray.
Chelsea Gray. Yeah. And Kelsey Plum is the 3rd option. Yeah. Now she's going to an LA Sparks where she will be number 1 option. I can guarantee you that. And she will have the ball in her hands. She will be the one conducting play in Sparks. Yeah. So I guess that's why that move was done. So the Aces are saying, let me get a Jewell Loyd, she calls herself the Golden Mamba, right? Because she thinks she's the female version of Kobe. And Kobe really loved her. Yeah, Kobe really loved her. And to be fair to her, she's lights out, right? She can score. Let's call it what it is, right? So for the Aces, it's a good move. Let's shake things around a bit. Get Jewell to come. Yeah, let's let Kelsey lead. Okay. Now, I've more or less spoken about the perspective of Spark of the LA Spark, in the sense that you get a point guard that you've been looking for. The only downside, like you've mentioned, is the whole LA team is actually a bit young, if you get what I mean.
Yeah.
Or there are 2 star players, or their future is Rickea Jackson, who is very, very young. She just came into the league last season. And a Cameron Brink, who also just came into the league last season. So you're bringing in a point guard that is now way older. Maybe that brings in a bit of balance and, you're
maturity.
mixing maturity and the rest of it. I get that. But I was hoping that they could get a younger person so that the whole team can grow together. But
makes sense.
But I mean, Kelsey, she doesn't play like an old woman, if I can put it that way. I mean, I had to double check that she was 30 years old. I'm serious. I mean, she doesn't play like a 30-year-old. So that's for the Sparks. And for the Storm, the Seattle Storm, you and I know there's been some mumbling that Jewell Loyd actually requested a trade during last season.
She didn't get along with Nneka Ogumike.
She didn't get along with everybody, not just Nneka.
Okay.
She didn't get along with everybody. So I think this suits everybody, right? So if you ask me who won the trade, what the number 2 pick turns out to be in the future will determine who won the trade, right? Because right now, I think the net impact on the Aces on LA, it's very, very good for LA. They have a point. They didn't have a point guard, so now they have an all-star point guard, which is positive for LA, right? But Seattle, whoever they pick as number 2, 5, 6, 7, 10 years from now, that's when we can come back to say that number 2 pick turned out to XYZ. So indeed, maybe Seattle will have a say. But right now, I think I'll say LA is edging who won the trade based on what we know right now. I think it's the best fit for them. And Kelsey Plum is a fashionista. She will fit into the LA lifestyle. Do you understand? So it's all good. But yeah, that's what I think. Talking of the number 2 pick, you and I, based on the projections, we thought it was going to be Kiki Iriafen. In our previous episodes, we talked about how we know and how we have vested interest in what happens to her. But I've seen recent draft boards that's projecting her as the number 3 pick. Some people are putting Olivia Miles ahead of her. But anyway, we'll see how it goes. Akin.
Can I just say, I love Olivia Miles. We've talked about her here before. She's one of this Energizer bunny, tiny little, package of destruction on the court. She's so fun to watch. All of that. But she is no Kiki. So stop the madness. Your the number 2 best player in women's college basketball is Kiki. Stop the madness. And honestly, if my girl Paige doesn't watch out, Kiki might be the number 1 best player. I'm just saying. So, but I'm joking a little bit. But I think going to the Seattle Storm would not be the worst idea for Kiki.
Yeah,
I would have loved to see her with Cameron Brink again.
Exactly.
With the Sparks, with Rickea, Jackson, that would have been a starting 5 that would just be out of this world. But it is what it is. I can't wait. We only have 3 more months to wait, maybe 2.5.
We'll see,
and then we'll find out. All right. So
talking about Kiki, before we quickly move on. So I think the reason why Kiki's draft might be coming down a bit, I told you, is because of Juju Watkins. 2 of them at USC. Juju Watkins right now is the best college player. But she's not, I don't think she's going to declare for the WNBA this year. So that's why she's nowhere on the draft board. If she had declared, she'll be number 1 ahead of Paige Buchers right now.
I know.
Just
she may have been number 1 last year, even with CC. So my point about Kiki still stands, but we're going to move on. Yinka, let's talk about AFCON. Are we calling it 2025 or are we calling it 2026? Because it starts in December.
It ends in 26.
It ends in January of 26.
So the graphics that I have says Morocco 2025. That's what they call it.
Okay, so they're calling it 25.
So they're calling it 2025.
Right. Even though the last one was in 24, not 23.
Yes, the last one.
Okay.
No, it was in January 24. Yeah. Well,
January it was, yeah. It ended January. That's when we started our podcast. Yeah.
That's when we started our podcast. Yeah. Okay. So you want me to go ahead and talk about this?
Yeah, please. Go for it.
So the draft actually happened this evening, just before we started. So it's quite fresh. It's like agigi bread, straight off the bakery. you know a lot about bread.
Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
So in Group A, we'll have Morocco, Mali, Zambia, and Comoros. I'd actually for a minute there forgotten Comoros was an African country.
Amazing.
So that's Group A. Group B, we have Egypt, South Africa, Angola, and Zimbabwe. That's a tricky group.
That's a tough group. That is
a tough group. In Group C, we have Nigeria, Tunisia, Uganda, and Tanzania.
That's a tough group.
But Nigeria, Tunisia are coming out of that group. Uganda, Tanzania, right? That's a tough group, but it's not as tough as the Group B that has Egypt, South Africa, Angola, and Zimbabwe. So in Group D, you have Senegal, Democratic Republic of Congo, Benin, and Botswana. And
that's easy.
That's easy. It's easy. In Group E, you have Algeria, Burkina Faso, Equatorial Guinea, and Sudan. If our guy, what's that guy?
I know.
Emiliano Unsue.
The guy that was banned.
The guy that was banned has still played. Anyway, so I see Algeria and Burkina Faso coming out of that group. But you never know. Equatorial Guinea, they have a way of causing commotion. Then in Group F, you have Cote d'Ivoire, the champions, Cameroon, Gabon, and Mozambique. And I will expect Cameroon and Cote d'Ivoire to also come out of that group. So if you ask me, well, where's the group of death? It's that Egypt, South Africa, Angola, and Zimbabwe group looks like the difficult one. Even Group A that has Morocco, Mali, and Zambia. Morocco, Mali, Zambia, it's tough. Yeah. So
Morocco will be home.
Yeah, Morocco will be home. Morocco will be home.
What are the dates? Yeah, what are the dates?
So it starts in December. When precisely? When? Give me a minute. I actually had this somewhere before. So Nations Cup starts 21 December 2025 and ends 18 January 2026.
Okay. We need to talk because we should be going to that tournament. So that's my first reaction.
Yes.
But we got to plan our travels, especially me, around that time.
Yes.
So that's one. Two is you just counted 24 teams. Guess who is not there, Yinka?
Who is not there?
Ghana. That's it. That's who is not there. Ghana is not there. So when we're talking football or jollof rice, I don't want to hear Ghana's name anywhere. Everything else they can talk. But don't talk football, don't talk jollof.
Interesting.
We don't be mates.
We don't be mates. So if we're planning to go, my preference will be to watch the Nigerian group games. I'm not interested in the quarterfinals, the semis, and the finals. What I saw January last year is enough. I'm not. No. I don't want to go through that anymore.
Although I do expect that things will go better in Morocco than in Libya and than in Cote d'Ivoire. I when I was living in Nigeria in December, I traveled through Casablanca.
Yeah.
If from the little I saw, my first time traveling through Morocco, I think it'll be a little more sane.
Yeah.
But we'll see. You never know. When football enters the equation, you never know.
Everything is scatter.
Okay. All right, Inka, we've come to the end of our worthy mentions. Let us go very quickly to our top 5 league review of the last set of games and preview of the coming ones.
Yep.
And then after that, we'll do a quick UCL Champions League review and preview as well. So we're gonna start in England. Do you think, Inka, that Manchester City's funk is really over?
We discussed this last week or so.
We discuss it every week now, it seems.
No. So you asked this specific question, and I said the fixture list kind of helped them a bit. That the upcoming fixtures will tell us whether things have changed or not, right? I'm going to merge this a bit with the PSG, the Champions League game with PSG, because they lost that, and they lost that in a disastrous manner.
In spectacular fashion.
In a spectacular fashion. That was bad. And if you watch the game against Chelsea also, Akin, the first 15, 20 minutes, Chelsea should have scored at least 2 goals.
I agree.
At least, right? Pep was so desperate that he started Kuzanov, who is
20 years old, you told me?
20 or so. Yeah, 20 years old, sorry.
Yeah, it looked 18, but it's 20,
Along with Mamouche, who was also their new signing. And the third signing was on the bench, actually. The Reyes guy or whatever his name was, right? And frankly, if Chelsea are useful and not useless as they as they demonstrated, they should have won. They should have won that game. Yeah.
What was the score of that game? What was the score?
End up 3-1.
3-1 City. Yeah.
3-1 City. Okay. Ended 3-1 City. This is where Cole Palmer had one-on-one with the goalkeeper and chose to lay it off to Jackson, who then decided this is the time for me to show that my first touch is horrible. Then he too couldn't score, then laid it back to... I'm like, what are you guys doing? And this is time for us to talk about Cole Palmer. I'm sorry I'm digressing, but it'll be interesting to see how has Cole Palmer fared in the Big 6 games, in the games that matter. It will be interesting to see his stats. Apologies, this just occurred to me now. I will have pulled it up and I will have shown you people. But I can't remember the last big game that Cole Palmer actually showed up and showed out. I can't remember. But the whole world is raving that this dude is world class. Is better than this person. Is better than that person. Is the greatest thing since sliced bread.
You can say the name of the people of the person. It's Bukayo Saka. Go on. It's always the one everybody's coming after.
What are we on about? Anyway, we'll talk about Cole Palmer later. Back to City. The next game is the Champions League game at home to Bruges. Akin, if they don't win that game, they are out of Champions League altogether. They don't need a draw. They need a win. You know the funniest part? Bruges also need to win. If they win, they're in the Champions League. So it is winner takes all. So this is a proper cup game, which anything can happen. Yeah? Now, if City then win that game, quote and unquote, win the game, that means they will have 2 games. They'll be on a mini run by the time they now face Arsenal, who is hanging on to their dear lives in terms of injury, suspension, or the inability of the hierarchy to put their money where their mouth is and help out the team, right? So everybody will look at it and be like, oh, yeah, City, yeah, they're back to... They're not back to the old City that we all know. Are they in trouble? Of course, I don't think they're in trouble, right? I have a funny feeling they will defeat Bruges in the Champions League. But if they don't, okay, I think they will too.
Okay.
My head is telling me they will, right? But anyway, let's see how it goes.
All right. So let me just do this really quickly.
Yes.
City's funk is over.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is they're not as good this year as they've always been. They're not as good this year as Liverpool are proving to be, right? And we can now call Enro's name in open court because he's been on the show, so everyone knows who he is now. But Enro made a good point, on our group chat that Pep is past his sell-by date. That's my words, not his, but same idea that he spent 3 years at Barcelona, and then he was like, I got to take a sabbatical. I'm done. He spent 3 years at Bayern, and then this is his 7th season.
Yeah,
7th season. So could it be that Pep is in it for the money, which I never thought I would say, because who am I to tell another man that he has too much money and he should not make money? You know, could it be hubris? Could it be he got comfortable? Could it be he got bored? Right? Because for me, when I look at the number of defenders that Pep has, and then he turns around and says, I don't have defenders. I'm like, what are you talking about?
John Stones was on the bench.
John Stones was 50 million pounds when nobody playing defense was 50 million pounds.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like, they bought John Stones, what, 6 years ago? 7 years ago? It's been there a very long time. Yeah. So, you know, I told you, I think the problem with Pep is Pep needs toys. And he always needs new toys, right? It gets to a point where Gabriel Jesus is no longer good enough. Aguero is no longer good enough because, you know, they're not 110% of what he's looking for. Sterling was the same thing. You know what I mean? So it usually has about your shelf life with Pep is like 3 years as a player. You know, even Gundogan. Why did Gundogan leave? Because they wouldn't give him a 2-year contract. They only gave him a 1-year contract. This guy's the model citizen. How do you let Gundogan, you know, even KDB? KDB is no longer respected. Yeah. You know, there was a time. What's the name of the Portuguese defender? Diaz. There was a time when Diaz was like untouchable. Yeah. You know, there was nothing he couldn't do. He won a popularity contest over KDB for captain. Yeah. There was nothing. Now it's just another guy. Or as I call them, a jag. Another guy.
Another toy.
No. So Pep needs new toys. You know what I mean? And for me, this refresh that he's doing and putting them straight into a game after what, maybe one training session, especially one in the center of defense. I'm so glad, it blew up spectacularly in his face because that is reckless. That is so reckless. You know, a 20-year-old will cost you points. Unless they're Van Dijk, unless they're Rio Ferdinand, you know, unless they're, dare I say, Saliba. Even Saliba, sometimes it will cost you points. Yeah. And then you bring this guy from, what league is he coming from? Does it matter?
French league.
He's 20 years old. You know, you put him in a team that lacks confidence. So when I saw when he was stretching his neck to make that crazy play, I was really happy to see that. I'm like, the hubris is too much for me. Okay, I said I was going to move quickly. Yeah. I told everyone that cared to listen that Chelsea are not about to win anybody's league. All of you should be ashamed of yourselves for calling them contenders. You know, I should withdraw all of your pundit cards because that was crazy. That was insane. All of you are crazy that thought Chelsea.
Who are these all of you?
All of you, started with you, Yinka. Everyone that said Chelsea was a contender. You know,
we can pull up the records. You asked me, and I said no, I don't think they are. That's what we said.
You know,
and you said I wasted your time for having this discussion with you.
Yeah, because I refuse, Yinka, to even give them the time of day. I'm like, 3 years from now, if they keep doing the same thing, maybe we'll have the conversation. But no, Chelsea are not about to win anybody's league.
But their coach Maresca should be flogged to some extent. I'm sorry.
What did he do wrong?
He should be flogged to some extent. Yeah. So if you keep, how do I explain this? So you have two teams, the ones that play European Cup competition and the ones that play the league. Yes.
European Conference.
Yeah, whatever. As I just said, cup competition. I don't know which one it was.
Yeah.
Right.
They're in the Spurs section of Europe. But go on.
Okay. So why is João Felix, right, not getting game time? Please.
Not good enough for Maresca. Doesn't work hard enough. Can't carry a passenger.
But the few games that he has played, both in this cup competition and in the league, he has shown that he can contribute, probably, if at the minimum, at the same level as Nicholas Jackson, if not more.
Yeah. So I think I can actually see the reason. The their best player, right, Cole Palmer, does his best work as a false 9 or a number 10 in the traditional number 10. They play him on the right? Is quick-ish, but it's not fast. He doesn't have end-to-end speed, but he has guile, but he's not a fast player. But he tries defensively. It's not a liability. I give him a lot of credit for a young-ish player. He's not that young, by the way. Don't let a baby face fool you. Isn't he almost 23? Or isn't he around 23? So I feel, without being in Mareshka's mind, I feel like he feels he can't play Cole Palmer and João Felix at the same time. That's what I think is happening. So you'll have to, but you're right. You'll have to bench Nicholas Jackson.
And the whole Chelsea RIP, you have how many £100 million signing? 3, I guess. You have 3, don't they?
Two in the middle of their midfield.
And you have Mukaila Mudryk.
Mukaila Mudryk. It was 80. Was it 89? Did he get to 100?
I
Jesus
think it's probably close to 100. You have 3.
What a mess.
We'll talk about £100 million signing shortly. Let's move on.
Okay. Yinka.
Yes, sir.
I already know who your donkey of the week is. So let's just as they say where I live, Michael Oliver did it again. Done it again. So let's set it up. Michael Oliver in the Wolves were hosting Arsenal, right? Yeah. This was a away match, right, for Arsenal, right? So Wolves were hosting Arsenal. Arsenal were on the ascendancy in the 43rd, I believe, minute. Was it 43rd? Yeah, let's say 43rd minute.
Yeah.
From an Arsenal corner, Wolves were about to break, and Miles Lewis-Skelly, 18-year-old leftish back, tripped or attempted to trip a player, a Wolves player, on the edge of the Wolves box as they were about to break away.
Yeah.
He walks away. He knows he's going to get a yellow card. You think he's going to get a yellow card. I think he's going to get a yellow card. Everyone thought he was going to get a yellow card. Michael Oliver brandishes a red. And I'm thinking, how can you have denial of a goal scoring opportunity when there's 80 yards to run? I've never seen anything like that before.
You thought it was dogso.
Initially, that's what I thought, because I'm not a crazy person. I think like a normal human being that breathes air and eats food, right? And then I'm also racking my brain to remember if there were any covering defenders, right? Because it's Michael Oliver, I know anything is possible, right? So I'm like, Nwaneri was covering, someone else was covering. This is a bad decision.
Plenty cover.
Right? But I also saw them give a red card when there was 40 yards to go to the goal the other day, right? So I'm like, this is gonna be overturned. And then boom, they tell me it's dangerous play, high boots. He raked the guys, whatever, over. And I'm like, if it was over the ankle, it was by this much. This is a technicality. This was a trip or an attempted trip, right? And then the VAR took like 0.0002 seconds and be like, check. And I'm like, I have never seen anything like this before. And then it gets worse. João Gomez, right, was on a yellow. You said it should have been sent off for another yellow. I'm going to skip that because I don't remember it. But then it kicks the ball away, should have got a second yellow, did not, right? Someone elbowed the Arsenal player, should have got a yellow, nothing. And then this guy crunched Timber. Timber was crunched like 4 times in one game, right? Crunched his ankle, nothing to see here, yellow. So it was a second yellow, but it should have been a straight red and a 3-game suspension. Instead, it's a second yellow, red card, and a 1-game suspension. So I've laid it all out. I believe that's how it happened. Michael Oliver, is this incompetence? Is the best referee in England, which is mind-boggling. Is he fraud? Because Yinka is now given 8 red cards to Arsenal in his career, 0 to Man City in his career. He's also refereed in the Middle East for the owners of Man City. These are facts. These are now rumors. 8, including the double yellow for, what was it? For a foul and kicking the ball away. Yellow, Martinelli in this fixture 3 seasons ago. And then it was the same guy who refused to book Kovacic, away to City 2 seasons ago.
It was at home at Emirates. It was at
was
Emirates.
it? Oh, my bad.
It was at
Emirates. Against Odegaard, right?
Against Odegaard and Rice. And he didn't give him a second yellow for either.
Didn't give him a second yellow.
He doesn't want to negatively affect the game. That was what his boss said.
So the PGMOL has already backed him, and now they're focusing, Yinka, on the abuse that people have been raining on him. Now we don't support abuse, unless people deserve it. I'm kidding. That was a joke. We don't support abuse, even when people deserve it. Still kidding. But the fact that the PGMOL anchored on the abuse is a disgrace, and they're backing this guy. And of all the pundits, current players, I've never seen anything like this before, Yinka. All the haters online, everyone agrees this was a bad decision. Everyone except Steve Nichols of ESPN is the only one I've heard.
They're backing down now. You haven't heard from Gary Neville and what's his name? Jamie Carragher. They're pulling back now. They said after having watched it several times, they now see why. They see that window of how Michael Oliver could have seen this as a red card. And
how could you have seen it in 2 seconds? In a split second.
In real time. God bless you. How could you have seen it in real time?
He gave him a red card for a trip, Yinka. There was no way he saw that ankle. There's no way he saw... Okay, Yinka, I'm done. Incompetence, fraud, or bias, or all of the above.
Okay, so let's just strike off incompetence. Yeah? Incompetence is, I don't know what to do. So that means if I don't do it for you, Akin, I'll look at, if it's me also, you do the same thing to me, and I'll be like, but that's a normal thing to do. And I'll be like, no. Then he's like, I'm sorry, I didn't know. Do you understand? Because if it's incompetence, or if it's a competent ref, then that stamp from Gomez on Timber would have been a red. If you're saying incompetence is competence in question, he did. You took a less severe tackle. You gave a straight red, and you looked at the more severe tackle, and you gave a second yellow. That's what you've done. So Akin is not incompetent. And I've told you this. I've said this a long time about this guy, Michael Oliver. Yeah? Michael Oliver, as it stands, has had, this season alone, has had 2 incidences with Arsenal that you will never see again. Prior to those incidences, you had not seen it before, and subsequent, you will never see them again. This trip is one, and the Trossard incident is the other one. Right? The speed at which this guy is like he's happy. He looks at the spectrum when it comes to Arsenal and says, give me the slightest excuse for me to just send somebody off.
Amazing.
That's what this dude is looking out for. Okay, I don't think this is incompetence. We are in the realms of, at the minimum, is bias. And I told you before that I pray for the sake of football in general, that it remains biased. Because if an investigation is done and later on in the future we realize that it is fraud, it will put the reputation of the Premier League in serious, serious jeopardy. You already saw, what's his name, David Coote, on video saying choice words towards, what's his name?
Liverpool.
Klopp.
Yeah.
They buried that. That is an indication that these guys are biased. That is an indication to some extent. We can even look at it and say there's a conspiracy or some fraud going on. But Akin, there are 2 issues here. So the first issue is, like you said, in real time, how could you have seen that it was? Because if you look at it, even when you slow it down, Akin, the guy went with his instep.
Yeah.
Intention, he went with his instep. Joao Gomez in the second half went with his
studs.
Yeah. They're two different things. So if the ref even missed it, okay, before I go to VAR, even if the ref saw that and you thought, that looked dangerous, you could have given it a yellow card. VAR will have investigated to say, let's check whether this meets the threshold for dangerous play. That is the job of VAR.
Yeah.
Or you chose to go to the extreme. And Arteta said one thing. He said, for you to give someone 2 yellow cards at a time, you want to give it. That's what it means. You are eager to give it, which is what I noticed for the Martinelli and for this one. This dude flashed it in seconds. He didn't even waste his time. He was like, this young boy, right? Now moving on to VAR, Aki. You have a Darren England on VAR who started refereeing in the EPL 10 years after Michael Oliver. There's a 10-year gap. So Michael Oliver is a senior ref. Do you think a Darren England would tell Michael Oliver that, oh, dude, something is wrong here, right? So I believe people are actually, maybe they're scared of him. It might be him only or not. Same thing with the Saliba incidents at Bournemouth. Yeah. It was a young referee that was on the pitch and a more experienced person in VAR. So when the guy called him to VAR, the young ref felt somehow that, how will I now say, I stand by my decision, when a more experienced person in VAR has said it's a red card. And that was the last time we saw a red card like that.
Yeah.
So when I tell you that Arsenal are referred differently, people think I'm crazy. It's beginning to pan out now.
Now everyone's agreeing now. It's amazing. Everyone's agreeing. I've never seen anything like this. I've never seen anything like it.
Now, to go to your abuse point, and I will quickly wrap this up. Yeah. Everybody, the PGMOL are now making it seem as if, oh, Michael Oliver. And yes, I agree with you. I don't support abuse and whatever. It's not.
Unless it's deserved. I'm joking.
Either way, deserved or undeserved, I don't support it. But here's the point, actually. Everybody's looking at Michael Oliver. What about Martin Lewis Kelly? An 18-year-old young man that this boy is being the first team right now. Now you're going to make him miss 3 matches because of your, whatever it is, incompetence, fraud, or bias. You're going to make him miss 3 matches. A Calafiori that scored is now back in the team. That boy might not smell the first team anymore, right? What about the impact on him? What about the emotional, whatever, on the young 18-year-old boy that I let my team down? Yeah? What about the impact on Ethan Nwaneri that had to be substituted? When these boys are like, oh, 2 18-year-old boys starting together for the first time. Let's see how we can make things happen. Friends, what about those 2 boys? You're not thinking about them. Boys, oh, it's all about you. Oh, PGMOL, we need to protect our people. This nonsense has to stop. It has to stop. In that same game, Joao Gomez kicked the ball away. Trossard had to walk to Michael Oliver and say, but this is the same thing you did to me. He was telling the ref. You said you did the same to me. Oh, yeah, go ahead now. And the guy said, no, it wasn't going to yellow card him. And I told you this thing. This is not the first time we're seeing this. Michael Oliver, there's enough evidence against him. I saw something that I wanted to quickly cover. It says, Michael Oliver's red card and yellow count against Arsenal is crazy. He's giving more penalties against Arsenal than any other club.
I believe
and has given less penalties to Arsenal than any other club. He's given more red cards to Arsenal than any other club. So
8. So,
Akin, at this point, I think there's enough evidence for Arsenal to say officially, I don't want Michael Oliver near any game. But what will now happen if they do that? Let me tell you, is the rest of the refs will now have that unconscious whatever to say, hey, you don't want what Wasabi, we'll show you Pepe. That's what's going to happen. So let's just pack it up. Let's pack it all up at this point. There's something wrong with this. And if the FA don't see this or PGMOL don't see it, then they should dissolve PGMOL. Now, final note. Talking about VAR, I know I've overspent my time. Talking about VAR.
Go for it.
Talking about VAR, they need to dissolve, right? How they need to stop the constitution of that VAR, whatever. It has to be a separate, independent body that will be made up of a retired ref, a retired footballer, and a tech guy that will draw the lines. That's all.
A coach.
Yeah, that will draw the line. Yeah, and it should not be part of PGMOL. So they would say, we recommend you need to go look at the screen. If the ref now chooses to say, you know what? I stand with my decision on the screen. Then they say, okay, all well and good. So we will know that this is the ref's decision after he had gone to look at the screen. All this PGMOL check complete is rubbish. It needs to stop. I rest my case.
All right. This one's hard, but we move on. We'll move on. Inka, let's take a quick detour and go to La Liga. I'm happy that Barcelona won 7-1 against Valencia. I need to slap myself again for thinking Valencia was going to do anything this season. Clearly, they're not. And I should have learned from each of the last several years where they flirted with disaster and then came in at the end of the day and saved themselves. What was I thinking, Yinka? But I'm happy for Barcelona. Unfortunately for them, Real Madrid also won. Did Atletico also win? I'm not sure.
No.
Sure.
Atletico. I think they were losing. Let me quickly check that. Atletico drew. Okay. They drew 1-1 with Villarreal.
So what's the table look like now? And then let's talk about whether there's still a real title chase in La Liga.
Look away now. Real Madrid. They are pulling away. They are now 4 points ahead of Atletico.
Everyone has played 21. Everyone has played 21 at this point.
21, right? But the thing is, the three of them are still. They have games to play against each other. Madrid will play Barca. Madrid will play Real. And Madrid will play Atletico. Atletico will play. So there is still that window of people taking points off each other. So 4 points is not massive enough yet for us to say, oh, Madrid are out of sight. So in my own opinion, I think it's still a 3-horse race. Yeah. El Clasico is always El Clasico. One way, Rafinha just turns into a demon in those games and finishes. Yeah. And I said, Real Madrid have looked better without Vinny Jr. in the lineup.
They have. But be careful. The question may be they just needed one of Vinny or Mbappe to sit. Not necessarily Vinny. Okay, that's my pushback. But go on.
Yeah, well, I like the way you've coined it, but you get my point.
I get your point.
Yeah, you get my point. They've looked better without him. And I think it was also the same when Mbappe had a knock or so. They also looked better with Vinny alone playing. So to your point. But it's interesting times in La Liga. Atletico Bilbao is also they're also bubbling under. They're knocking on the door. For a club that only gets players from the Basque region, see, I love their model. They pay their players well, but they don't buy anybody. The few acquisitions, when they buy, they make sure they buy players from the Basque region. But it's still a long way to go. We'll see how things pan out.
So I got a couple things, just looking at the table, couple things. So, I'm always a big proponent of, hey, when you have a high goals difference, you might have a shot, right?
Yeah.
So when I look at the three of them, Real Madrid is, 4 points ahead, like you said, of Atletico, but 7 points ahead of Barcelona. Yeah. They've all played 21. Real have won 2 more games than their rivals, 15-13. Barcelona have lost 3 more games than both of the other guys, 5-2. But Barca have scored 9 more goals than Real Madrid and 24 more goals than Atletico, right? And then if you're looking at goals difference alone, they're +5 compared to Real and +14 compared to Atletico.
So that tells me points already.
For me, So for me, even though it's Real, Atletico, Barca, I will reorder it for if I'm making a prediction that it's really, in terms of Real, odds to me, Barca, it's Real, Barcelona, and Atletico. Because I just feel like Atletico find it difficult to be explosive. And in some of these games, you do need to be explosive.
Yeah.
And, I think if Barcelona can tighten up, the 5 losses are unnecessary, in my opinion. They've really messed up. So that may be a bridge too far, right? That may be a bridge too far. But we know they're gonna beat up on Real Madrid when they come to when they come to Barca. So that's 3 points. That's 3 points for Barcelona over there. So anyway, I think there's still a title race, Rick. I don't think it's over. I think before we move on, is there any other thing you want to talk about in any of the top 5 leagues? I know PSG did not win. They drew this past weekend. I think it was 1-1. But it doesn't threaten their position in any way. So I don't think there's necessarily anything in France. And then there were some interesting matches in Serie A. I know Atalanta went on the road to our boys' team, Como, right, and 1-1 against Fabregas's team. So that was just interesting to me. Is there? Do you see anything?
Napoli Juventus was an interesting game. Napoli won. Was it 2-1 or 3-1 at the end of the day? It was 2-1 when I stopped watching it. The game ended 2-1. Napoli, those Scottish boys, Billy Gilmore and what's his name? The Man U boy. McTominay. Yeah. McTominay will anyway. Let's talk about United. McTominay.
It's the most perfect transfer of the season.
I'm telling you.
It's the craziest thing.
He's on fire.
It's the craziest thing.
He's on fire. Anyway, Sergio Conceição at Milan is turning Milan into. I hope it's not IGG. You know when I say IGG, initial ground, right?
But you knew what he was going to do.
Exactly.
There was no guarantee they would score goals, but they would not concede goals.
They look a different side.
Yeah, that's his MO.
They look happier. And at the end of the day, when they beat Parma 3-2. They scored. Our boy Chukwueze scored the winner. And Conceição came onto the pitch. I wanted to fight some Parma players.
Of course it did.
And his team members his players were like, no, they were pulling him back. Then all of a sudden they just started dancing on the pitch and I'm like, y'all just won a game, a Serie A game, not as if you won the cup or something. So
if you don't think they did that on purpose, that's straight out of the Jose Mourinho book. This guy is a Jose Mourinho disciple. No, that's straight out. Like, I'm gonna go fight somebody so we don't talk about us. That's it. It's straight out of the Jose Mourinho book. Like, again, I can't guarantee you they'll score any goals. Yeah, but I know they'll be difficult to play against because that's what he does.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the Milan derby is next week. I'm looking forward to that. But Napoli, Inter, Atlanta are the ones in the race in the Serie A. All right. Before we go to UCL, let's quickly talk about Bundesliga. Then we'll wrap up with the UCL. Leipzig dropped points. Leverkusen dropped points, but they played Leipzig. So, and since those are the people behind,
and they were on the road. I think. Leverkusen were on the road.
Leverkusen were on the road. And I think they scored first. I was watching the game and I stopped later on. So right now, Bayern are 6 points ahead of them. It's still, with the way Bayern is playing, I'm not comfortable.
So UCL. So this is, like you said, you talked about this earlier. This is the last Wednesday, and it's only gonna be on Wednesday. No games on Tuesday, right?
No games on Tuesday.
So this is the last game. Look, UEFA is doing a madness, but I still don't understand this whole format. Everybody's gonna play at the same time. The top 8 go automatically into the next round, and then the next eight, or the next 16. The next 16
playoff.
The next 16 will play a 2-legged playoff. So that's 2 extra matches you don't need if you're City. But at this point, they're praying for those 2 matches because there's no other way for them. Liverpool and Barca have already qualified. I think they're number 1 and number 2. Arsenal might be number 4, or is it number 3? Number 3. Arsenal need a draw away to Girona.
They don't need a draw. They've qualified.
They may need a draw. Let's put it that way. They may need at least a draw. There's some mathematical things that come into play if they don't win.
So
but
if
more than
they
likely,
avoid a significant loss, right?
Yeah.
or even if they lose and it's 1-0, I don't expect Villa to beat whoever they are playing,
7-0 or whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the only people that are here that can catch them is Villa, Monaco, Feyenoord, and Lille, right? And all these guys, Arsenal have a goal difference of +12. Villa have goal difference of 5, Monaco 3, Feyenoord 2, Lille 2, Brest 2. So you see what I'm saying? So they need to win significantly, and Arsenal need to lose significantly for Arsenal to get into the playoffs. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I get your point. It's mathematically possible, but it's most likely.
But it's probably not going to happen. So with City coming over the weekend, what do you do if you're Arsenal? Do you just play?
I'm playing the kids.
Do you play the likes of Tierney, and those guys?
Butler, Dideji, all those. I'm playing the kids completely. Completely. I might then play Saliba and Gabriel at centre back just to. But every other position, I am completely playing the kids.
And this is not the Girona of last season. This is the Girona of this season.
The Girona don't have anywhere to go. They have 3 points.
Nowhere.
They can't make the playoffs, right? They can't. Okay. The only thing that will happen, Girona is a subsidiary of Manchester City. They will intentionally give Arsenal a difficult game. I can tell you already. In fact, they might intentionally want to injure some Arsenal players, which is why if I'm Arteta, I'm not anybody that doesn't have a sub right now. If somebody like a Kai Havertz, we don't have another striker.
Kai Havertz broke. I think it did his back on the last play of the game against Wolves, and of course your boy saw it and was like, "Keep playing," your boy Michael Oliver. Yeah, it's unbelievable. Anyway, okay, Inca, there's a phenomenon brewing in the on the Champions League table right now.
Yes.
Perennial Scottish champions Celtic are ahead of perennial English champions Man City. How shall we explain this?
It's because of the format. It's because of this new format that we're talking about. For me, it's ridiculous. But there are some teams that they need to be careful. See, those double-legged playoffs is not the ideal thing to be messing around with, but they find themselves in there. So that Villa Celtic game, for example, is going to be an interesting one because Celtic, if they win, there's a probability that they get into the automatic positions. And Villa need to win to also get into the automatic position. So that game is going to be an interesting one. I'm trying to point out the games that you should be on the lookout for, right? Obviously, what's the name? Bayern, Slovan, whatever. God help Bayern if they lose that game. They might just start company. You might need to find another company if he's not careful, right? Then definitely the PSG Stuttgart game. Stuttgart are number 24. They are just at the threshold, so they need to win to stay in. PSG also need to win, right, to also stay in. Yeah, so that's another game to look out for. We talked about Man City already. Man City Club Brugge. We've talked about that. Brest Real Madrid is another one. Yeah, Brest currently they've dropped. They are now 13th. If they win, they have the potential to go into the automatic position. Right? And Real Madrid also, they need to win to get into the automatic positions. So
Real Madrid probably will not get in.
Yeah,
it's not impossible, but probably will not.
If it's a draw, it favors Brest more than Real Madrid. Yeah. So it's a couple of games that are interesting. But if I now look at all the match days that we've had, Aki, I'm still not convinced. I'm not convinced that this format is better than what I had before. I'm sorry.
It's not.
I don't think so. I gave it time. I gave it all the benefit of doubt that I thought it needed, but no.
So, a couple more tidbits. The two RBs have 3 points. RB Salzburg, RB Leipzig, they both have 3 points. They should, but only one of them has Šeško. So I guess one should be more ashamed of themselves than the other.